All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name's Hat.
And I'm Eric.
And today we are going to be talking about, finally, the PS1 classic games. The lineup has been released. We're going to be talking about the Western version and the Japan releases, kind of comparing them. Can't believe this actually broke the day after we recorded our podcast, our past week podcast.
That's how it always works.
Eric sent me a message, like all excited because we got the list, and my first thought was, "Oh, that would have been nice yesterday." But anyways, so if there's something new that pops up tomorrow, we'll talk about it next week. But then we have the new mobile game, Diablo Immortal. There's a recent Q&A. There's a lot of rage over that, and so we want to kind of get into that. And then on this Thursday, November 8th, there's going to be a second anniversary live stream for Final Fantasy 15, celebrating the 2-year anniversary of the game. And there's going to be some announcements supposedly for the game. And I don't know, we don't know how big these announcements are going to be or like anything like that. But it is interesting that they're doing a second anniversary for the game. Then we have some Switch side news. We got World of Final Fantasy. It's going to be out on November 6th. We're anxious to kind of talk about that a little bit. And then Phantasy Star, we thought it was coming out this month in the West, not coming out in the West, might be coming out in the West, probably not coming out. We don't know. So we're going to talk about that. And then we have from one of the viewers, what is the worst console RPG you've ever played, hands down, regardless of critic user reviews? That's from Cody Murley, I think is how you say his last name. But anyways, that's a great question. And we're anxious to hurt everyone's feelings with our picks of the worst console RPG we've ever played. Hopefully not, though. And then we have some comments after that. But before we get into all of that, Eric, what have you been playing this week?
I don't have much to say this week. I have been playing more Red Dead Redemption 2. I haven't had much time in general to play much this week, but I did put some time into that, and I'm on Chapter 3 right now, which is pretty much maybe like 10 hours of gameplay over. But I have been putting some attention to it. I'm still enjoying it. I feel more tempted to just go through the main quest and the side quests, but the side quests are definitely fulfilling if you decide to do them. So, you know, the game is still pretty great so far. The story is still engaging. It still just falls in that one criticism I have of Rockstar games, and I think they're getting better with it with each title, of course, but the storylines in these games always feel like they're mission structured, and that's, well, because they are mission structured. So when you go to a person, the conversation always feels the same. It's like you go to this person, they have a little skit, then they're like, okay, now you need to go do this, and you're like, all right, go on out to do this mission. And they've been doing that forever in Rockstar games, and it's not really a fault per se. It's just like it's just kind of a repetitive thing I always keep noticing. But like I said, they're doing much better in blending or making it feel more seamless or blend into the story itself or pacing it better. But it's just something I always notice with these games that take me out just a little bit. But the characters
just
are
a little
still
predictable.
Really good.
It's just a little predictable.
Yeah. But I mean, that game has some pretty decent twists and turns so far.
Yeah, you know, I've noticed that the I guess I would say fan base of the Red Dead series, right? I've noticed that people are a little split with this game. Everyone thinks it's a great game, but some people are actually saying, you know, I kind of like the Red Dead Redemption, 1 over 2. And then other people are like, well, you know what? I spent 80 hours living my life in this world. I had a great time. I like this one better. So it seems like people are a little split on this game. All around, it's supposed to be a great game.
I'm a little split in terms of, there's some things in 2 I like more than 1, and there's some things I like in 1 more than 2. Like, personally, I kind of like John Marston more than Arthur Morgan. Okay. Arthur Morgan's still a fun character. He's like a no tolerance, like, not going to take crap from you type of character. But like John Marston just feels like he has more depth to him. I'm sorry, my words. He has more depth to him.
Sure.
than Arthur does, and that his story feels more compelling on like where he comes from, because
Okay.
he's just like, the story with John Marston is he's just he was once an outlaw, but he decided to quit that and he started a family and a farm. But the government comes in and pretty much blackmails him into going out and catching the remaining members of his gang. And that itself starts into a compelling story. Red Dead Redemption 2, while it's executed well so far, the concept is pretty much, we need to get more money back to our gang so we can, you know, get everything back to the way it was, or try to survive this era of um, gangs in the Wild West dying down.
Sure.
And that's, I mean, it's like I said, executed well in itself, but I like the concept of Red Dead 1 more.
Gotcha. Well, you still have a lot of game to play, so maybe you'll change your mind by the end of it, right?
Yeah, and I watched his Jim Sterling video, and I thought he was pretty spot on with the obsession to detail in the game.
Really?
And there is some aspects like that where I've told myself, like, I've said it in last week's podcast, so I won't elaborate again. But there's just some times where I've told myself, I'm like, this is a part where it'd be much better if this was more of a video game than a
life simulator.
Than a life simulator. Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. I don't know. I'm still anxious to pick it up. I think it's just going to be one of those things. I'm going to wait till I have like a lot more time, maybe on a vacation or like a holiday, for me to like just be able to jump in for large amounts of time at a time. But I'm getting real close to beating Dragon Quest 11. But in addition to that, this week, while I was on my lunch break at work, there's this used video game store nearby. And sometimes I like to pop in there on my lunch break, just kind of see what's going on, check out what they have, see if they have any good deals. And I found a game that I wanted that I saw. It's called Stella Deus. It's an Atlas game, Gate of Eternity. I think it's actually fairly popular to a degree, but I've only put like minimal amount of time into it because I wanted to focus on Dragon Quest 11. But it's got a really cool art style. I think it's the same person from the Persona games, to be honest, but it's really well done. It's a tactical based game, kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics. It's got a great soundtrack, great artwork. The story is supposed to be really good too. What I can't figure out though is I see critically the game is kind of rated in that 7.5 to 8 range by like IGN and like GameSpot and stuff like that. And so I'm having a hard time figuring out why that's the case. So I think this is going to be one of those games like I kind of like jump to every now and again. I want to kind of change pace and see how long it takes me to get through it that way. But I'm kind of anxious to see what's this game's all about, because it looks like a great purchase that I didn't even expect to buy that day. So I'm anxious to get into it. If anyone's actually knows more or has an opinion on the game, have you played the game, Eric?
No, you're going to have to tell me how it is once you get it.
Well, I mean, I already got it, so but I mean, get through it some more, yeah.
Then you're just going to straight out tell me how it is when you play it.
Absolutely, man. Dude, but I'm telling you, when I was at the used video game store, I was waiting in this line behind this guy. I had like 12 minutes before I had to be back to work. And I thought to myself, okay, I can buy this real quick and leave and make it back on time. Holy crap. This guy in front of me, he was trying to buy a PS2 memory card, and they had like 4 different brands. And like, I swear to God, like the guy just stood at the counter for like 10 minutes, like really comparing each one. And like the guy was like trying to help him. He's like, do you not know the difference? And he's like, this one is like $15. This one's $13. Like the $15 one's better than the 13. And the guy could not make up his mind. I'm like just sitting there like, please just check me out. But I got through it. I got the game. So life goes on.
I mean, I've been to plenty of used video game stores myself. You get all sorts of characters in there. Like, I've had plenty of times where I just decide I want to get something and someone has to be Mr. Critical and say, oh, you're just wasting your money buying that game. It's it's so awful. It's like, what's so awful about it? And that's a bad thing to say because they'll just keep going on and on. And I mean, sometimes you find a little level of elitism,
Hmm.
sometimes in the used game scenario, but it's actually not too bad. It's pretty rare I get into conversations like that, but you do get those bad eggs once in a while, or those annoying people.
Yeah, I just try to keep to myself, especially when people start talking to me. I'm just one word answers like, "Oh, yep, great time, great game. Yeah, you're right, bad game." That's it. And I just get in, get what I want, and leave. But
Sometimes I
anyways,
just like to stare at them and like turn my head slowly. I'm like, oh, all right.
yeah. So, but it's always a good time. And so, anyways, so yeah, pretty much Dragon Quest 11 all week. I did play the game a little bit, but I'm anxious to play some more so I can actually talk about it in more detail and kind of give my opinion on it. But let's go ahead and move into our first topic here. So we have the PS1 Classic lineup that was announced, I think, on Monday last week, and a lot of mixed reactions to this.
I called
Eric,
out a
what's your
lot of them.
thoughts?
I called out some of them. Battle Arena ones I remember I called out were Battle Arena Toshinden,
Hmm.
Destruction Derby, and Twisted Metal. Now, granted, a lot of people probably guessed Twisted Metal, but I knew those two were going to be on there because those were launch title games, and they were popular launch title games.
Mm.
Um,
Well, let's just I'll go ahead and read off the games, and we'll just say whether we would be interested in this game now, right? Because a lot of people feel like the Japanese version's better. Some people like the Western version better, or North American version, I should say, right? So the first game here, Battle Arena Toshinden. This is a game that you yourself, Eric, you called, and you were correct.
it's a
I'm not
great
that.
game for its time. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I'm
play
not that.
today, it's kind of bare bones, but
Yeah, it doesn't get me excited, but cool. Next one, Cool Borders 2. I remember putting a lot of time into this game, me and my friend. I have Cool Borders 3 also. Not quite sure if I would be excited to play this game if it was since it is on the PS1 Classic. Do you have any endearing thoughts with Cool Borders 2?
I never played it, so I don't know how much to say. But
Cool.
I know snowboarding games are pretty popular, so
Well, if I remember correctly, like there was this really cool mode where you could do like tricks and stuff and like try to like rack up points on like half pipes, snow half pipes and stuff, and you could try to race for a higher score and stuff. It's kind of a fun game. So I'm all right with that being on there. Destruction Derby, are you a fan of that?
that's another one I called out. And it's stupid fun, but it is fun. I would have to play it again to see how much it's held up. But back then, during the time, it was pretty fun. Like you would have racing tracks, and like the gimmick to it is you can just wreck other players
Mm,
senseless while driving through
hmm.
these things. And then you would have like classic destruction derby modes that you would see like at shows, where it's like a bunch of cars in an arena, and the last one to be standing wins. And it's a fun multiplayer game more than a single player game because when you play with your friends and you're just trying to wreck their cars, and it was a good time in that regard. But like I said, it's not a very deep game. It's just a senseless, mindlessly fun game.
Yeah. So I haven't really put that much time. I think I rented it one weekend, but I don't really have too many memories with it. Then we have Final Fantasy VII. We already knew that, but I feel like you cannot have the PS1 Classic without Final Fantasy VII. That would have been crazy.
It
So
helped make the PlayStation what it was.
yeah, so good job with that one. Then here's where things get a little weird for me personally, and I'll kind of get into this as we go. Grand Theft Auto 1. Now, I know that the Grand Theft Auto series is huge now, and it's been huge for a very long time. But really, the big game in the Grand Theft Auto series was Grand Theft Auto 3. I've owned Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2 just because when 3 came out way back when, I liked it so much I went back and bought the first two. The first two games nowhere near as good as number 3, and I don't think that this was really that. I don't remember the first one being that popular back in the day. So it seems kind of strange they're picking a game that wasn't that popular then, because it's popular now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think the name sells.
well, I mean, I think, okay, let me rephrase that. I can see for like marketing purposes why they would pick that, but like I don't think that anyone's actually going to like that game, to be honest. But maybe I could be wrong. I But anyways, let's move on. We got Intelligent Cube. How do you feel about that?
I've never played that.
Me either. I think that was a game that cost them very little to put on there. That's probably why it's on there. Jumping Flash, I don't care about.
Never played it.
Metal Gear Solid, awesome. We were kind of speculating.
I have played
Yeah, yeah. We were kind of speculating whether Metal Gear Solid would actually make it on the PS1 Classic. Not that we thought that it didn't sell enough to be on there or anything like that. We were just kind of like, well, like it's a huge game, but they're going to have to fork over a percentage of royalties or per unit sold to get that game on there. It's a big title. Would it be on there? And frankly, I think it would have been a little strange if it was not on there. But I'm glad to see it on the PS1 Classic for sure.
It's good. It's one of the greatest games ever made. So
yeah,
it's good that it made it on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we have Mr. Driller. I don't think I've ever played that game. Have you?
Nope.
Okay.
Not much to say.
We have Oddworld Abe's Odyssey. I like that game. I had a good time with that game.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid pick.
Yeah. Then we got Rayman. I like that game. That was a good pick.
I loved that game. That was one of the first games I got for the PS1. That, Destruction Derby, Battle Arena Toshinden were the first 3 games. That and Discworld also, 4th one, were the 4 I got for the PlayStation 1. And that Rayman game is a solid game. Even today, it holds up aesthetically well. And it's a solid 2D platformer. Like, sure, the future 2D Rayman games are better, but like this one started it, and if you get this collection, I highly recommend playing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what probably so far the 3 games that I'm probably most excited for would be, of the ones we've read so far, is Final Fantasy VII, Rayman, and then Metal Gear Solid. Those are the 3 on there that I would definitely try if I had this. I'd probably play it. I'd play Oddworld too, also. From there, we got Resident Evil Director's Cut.
Another classic.
Yeah, I thought for sure that had to be on there. The thing I was looking at was, okay, they already have Final Fantasy VII, and I'm sure that they're paying Square Enix, a substantial or a reasonable portion of that $100 for Final Fantasy VII every time a unit's sold. So I was like, man, they're already paying a lot probably for that game. Now I had a hard time believing that they would also have Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil on there, because those are all such big games, and the companies that make these, they just know that they have the ability to bargain with those games, But yeah, I was surprised that Resident Evil made it on there as well. That was a big deal, I think.
Yeah, it's a director's cut one also. I mean, granted, I'm sure it's the only option they would go with, but I mean, that's still still the definitive one.
Sure. And next one is another weird one for me. Revelations Persona. Now, I was going to say, like, this is I've kind of the similar feeling to Grand Theft Auto, where like the Persona series, to me personally, didn't really start picking up steam for a lot of people till Persona 3. And the PlayStation version of these games, like I haven't played this one, but I played Persona 2. And they're just, in my opinion, not as good as the later games. So, the PlayStation, I don't feel was really known for Persona games. The PlayStation 2, yeah, but not the PS1. So this was kind of an odd pick for me, but it's probably some of that name branding, like you said.
It was a very under the radar game, and like you just said just now, the name itself sells it pretty well. But I remember in one of our previous podcasts, someone called out Persona 1 or 2 making it, and I was very doubtful of it. I was like, I don't know, maybe in the Japanese version, but I don't think the North American one. And prove me wrong, there it is, right there.
Yeah, I think that might have been me.
Yeah, it is funny though. Like, these are definitely not definitive versions. I think you got to go through some different things, because like there's some pretty heavy censorship on some of them. Like I think it was Persona 2 that had Hitler in it,
Yeah,
and they put sunglasses over him and called him Fuhrer.
yeah,
That one. Very
yeah,
funny, but censorship nonetheless, like heavy one.
for sure. So, I mean, in my opinion, it didn't really find its groove until the third one. Granted, I'm not a huge Persona fan to begin with, so maybe I'm not the best person to talk to about that. But I mean, it's cool if you're going to put an odd game on there that people might actually say, like, you know what, I haven't played that game. That's probably a good pick to put on there. Really get some sales. Next one, Ridge Racer Type 4. I think that was one of the games that they originally announced, right?
I think so. I've never really gotten the Ridge Racer much, so
Neither.
I don't have any nostalgic ties with this one.
Well, I don't think you have with the next one either. Maybe Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo.
Now that's an interesting one to pick.
Yeah,
I
the
didn't think
Turbo.
that would be on there. It's not that it's a bad game. It's just I never thought they would have chosen that to put on there. Well, then again, if they put like the PlayStation version of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, that was not a really good version, at least on the tournament scene. Like I heard the responses or something were just like very delayed and broken feeling.
I've never played this game in my life, so it's a puzzle game. I'm assuming, like, but you fight.
Yeah, it's a puzzle game, kind of sort of like Tetris Attacks, where you do certain puzzle combinations to go hit against the other opponent
Oh,
type deal.
okay. Um, Interesting pick. Not something I would have picked, but they probably had limited options. Siphon Filter. Never really gotten to that game, but I know it's a big one. I just think that that's kind of like a time period classic. I'm not sure people would appreciate it as much now, but maybe.
People definitely loved it at the time. I wasn't big into it. I never really got the games, but I know I had friends that were just like all over it at the time who loved it. So I'm not surprised it made it on there.
Yeah. Tekken 3, that doesn't surprise me. I think they already announced that.
Yeah. And that's probably that's the best one in the PlayStation series. So
yeah, I was a big fan of that. I had Tekken. I never got the first one, but I had Tekken 2 and Tekken 3. I liked those a lot. Let's see here. We got Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six.
I didn't even know it made it back that far.
Yeah, like I was kind of indifferent towards that. Interesting, but okay. Twisted Metal 1. I used to play these games a lot. I think I like the second one better though.
Yeah, I mean it's a classic game. I mean we all knew that one was coming on there.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Then we got, of course, we have Wild Arms, so we already knew about that. But very, very cool. I don't know, like this is like I saw a lot of people complaining about this list because we're missing games like, I think you were even bringing it up. We were kind of talking, kind of just not complaining, but surprised. Certain games like, you know, none of the Tomb Raider games are on there. That was a real big series. Gran Turismo is not on here. That was a real big racing game on the PlayStation. You know, none of the Crash Bandicoot games. And I mean, Crash Bandicoot, I know it's all over the place now on all systems, but back in the Sony PlayStation 1 days, like Crash Bandicoot was like associated with Sony. Like they were having commercials with, you know, that character, like basically trolling like outside of Nintendo's like headquarters, like, hey, what do you got on us? And you know, stuff like that. Like I felt like that game should have been on here, but I think, and especially like games like Spyro, a lot of those games like that, but I think probably the reason we're not seeing those games on the North American version is because a lot of those games have just recently been re-released, and I guess they wouldn't want you know, they wouldn't want competition with their own game, because I'd assume that they'd make less money off each unit sold here than they would on a remastered version on the Switch, right?
I mean, so. I can kind of understand that, but I don't think there would have been any harm at least putting the first Crash Bandicoot, the first Spyro in there. Those I can kind of understand because they've been remade recently, but Tomb Raider, I'm kind of surprised, especially since we got Final Fantasy VII on here. So Square Enix is definitely on board with them on releasing their classics, and how at least Tomb Raider 1 didn't get on there is that's a pretty baffling one. Like something like Super Puzzle Fighter or Mr. Driller gets in there, but not Tomb Raider. And not to discredit those games, but Tomb Raider was one of the games that made that system.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly that's the biggest thing because, like you said, we can understand like okay, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, those games have been recently re-released. Why would they not like? Why would they want to compete with each other? May not have been that big of a deal, but we can understand. The Tomb Raider series at least put one of the Tomb Raider games on there. Another one that surprises me honestly is I thought for sure the only thing that was holding me against this game would be the size of the game, but Legend of Dragoon. I mean, Sony owns that game. So they wouldn't have to pay themselves royalties or anything to use it on here, or licensing or anything like that. You know, they own the game. Like, so I'm surprised that they're having a game like Intelligent Cube, and they're not like take Intelligent Cube off and put Legend of Dragoon on this thing. So it's weird because like I want to complain about the list, but then I look at it and I'm like, okay, well, they're probably paying a lot of money to have Resident Evil on there. They're probably paying a lot to have Metal Gear Solid. They're paying money to have Final Fantasy VII. I mean, they got Persona on there. I mean, they got some big games on here, and I'm kind of surprised that they got all of these on here at the same time. And that was really the biggest thing that Sony had going against them was the fact that like a lot of these games that were huge on the PlayStation were not their own games. They were third party developers or just other companies. So it takes some negotiation to get those games on here. So that's probably why we have some of this filler content because they don't want the system to cost $200 to have all these huge franchises on there. But it is surprising that they didn't get some of the other ones on here.
Yeah, or the other theory is that they wanted to keep this as varied as possible to keep it like just open enough that like they could get like multiple type of customers in. Like if you make like too many JRPGs, someone's gonna be like, oh, there's just a bunch of RPGs on here. I don't want this, or a bunch of action games. It's like, well, there's not enough RPGs on it. I don't want it. So maybe they're trying to like balance it out some, but I think they just sacrificed like the biggest titles like Gran Turismo and Tomb Raider to make that happen. And I think if you ask people, the most popular answer would be get rid of Mr. Driller or Intelligent Cube and put in Tomb Raider and Gran Turismo because these are the games that made the PlayStation what it was.
Yeah, or I would trade Ridge Racer Type 4 for Gran Turismo.
Ridge Racer is a classic in itself in the PlayStation lineup. I think that can stay.
If I had to pick between like a one racing game, right, it was either Ridge Racer Type 4 or Gran Turismo. I'm sorry, Ridge Racer Type 4 has to go. Gran Turismo is going in there, and that's just me personally. And then I would probably trade a Tom Clancy game out for a Tomb Raider game.
I may have a theory on why Gran Turismo. Doesn't Gran Turismo do licensing?
Oh, for the different cars?
For the cars.
Yeah, because that was one of the really cool things about Gran Turismo is that they actually like had real cars in the game, like based on like actual models, and you could like get the like history of them and like all that stuff. So maybe they have to pay. Actually, I'm sure they do have to pay some kind of licensing to use those cars in those games. I guess probably.
Yeah, because even to get Mega Man Legends out on Virtual Console, they had to change one thing about it, and there was in the original version of Mega Man Legends there was this cola machine that had a company brand on it, and because of that, if they released Mega Man Legends as it was to the Virtual Console, they would have to pay royalties, or they could potentially meet a lawsuit with that company. So they took a little time to kind of scratch that out, and then they released it. I think in Gran Turismo's case that would be much harder to do because these cars were licensed, and I don't know and how hard it would be to get those licenses back if you re-release this title.
See, okay, that makes a little bit more sense to me. I guess the way I'm looking at it now, though, honestly, is when you look at like the lineup for the SNES Classic, for example, they had no shame, right? Uh, I mean, it had a Final Fantasy game on there. It had Secret of Mana on there. I mean, like it was like whatever. Like we don't care if it's a bunch of Square Enix games. We're putting what was popular on there, and it's cool that they try to get a wide variety of games. But I think that's going to hurt them because their target audience, I think, is probably not going to be that interested in Mr. Driller. If anything, I think they could have taken some of these oddball games out and maybe lowered the price a little bit. I don't know how much they could have lowered it. Maybe only like $5, or maybe put some, analog sticks on the controller instead of having Super Puzzle Fighter and Mr. Driller and Jumping Flash and Intelligent Cube. Maybe if they could have removed those games and just had like analog sticks, that would have been cool. I don't know. We didn't actually see the paperwork, so we don't know how the negotiations all went down, but
I guess no. Now you remind me that they don't have analog. I'm looking at the list. I'm like, I don't think there's anything on here in particular that would be a deal breaker with me without analog. Metal Gear Solid, baby, but I think even then I could adapt to that just fine.
I think Ridge Racer Type 4, I would want analog personally, even though I think it came out before analog sticks. I don't know. I don't want to say anything definite because I could be wrong, but I'm a big fan of analog sticks, so that's just me. Let's go over this Japanese list because I think that this might be more down our alley than the average person. But let's get this window up here. All right, so on the Japanese version, we have Arc the Lad 1 and 2, which I know you're going to be a fan of.
Japanese have great taste, man. What can I say?
Then they have Armored Core 1. I played the sequel. I was never really into that series, but I guess that's kind of cool. But I could see why that would be a Japanese thing, right?
Yeah, I never played the earlier Armored Core, so I'm not too
me
sure.
Either. Battle Arena Tushinen. Never played it. Have you?
Battle Arena Tushinen. We just talked about it.
Oh yeah, we did up here. It's on ours. Okay, cool. That was one of the ones you called, right?
Mm-hmm.
Devil Dice. I don't know.
Never played it.
Final Fantasy VII, understandable. G Darius. I think that's like a side-scrolling shooting game, kind of like with a ship, right? Like a spaceship or something.
Game.
Yeah.
Mm.
Then we have Gradius Gaiden. That seems, I think that's a similar type of game. Japanese did get stuck with Intelligent Cube also and Jumping Flash. So we're spreading the love around a little bit. Then we have Metal Gear Solid, understandable. Mr. Driller, understandable. But then they got Parasite Eve. Now that is a game I wish was on our version because that was a cool game. I liked it.
That was a pretty cool game, but it was still. It might have been more popular in Japan, but it was more under the radar.
I think today though it's pretty popular.
I think it's a series that should be explored again. I know Tabata kind of ruined it with. I'm not gonna say Tabata specifically, even though I like to use him as the punching bag. But he did direct The Third Birthday, and we know that turned out to be pretty mediocre trash. So I do wish it would be explored again, but I hope in the right way.
Yeah. So, anyways, maybe we'll get another PS1 classic with some different games on it. I don't know. But then they have Persona, understandable. Resident Evil, Ridge Racer Type 4, Saga Frontier, kind of cool. Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, man, they really like that game. Tekken 3 and Wild Arms. So there's a little bit different a variety. Mainly, I think the biggest ones that pop out to me on this are that they're getting Arc the Lad 1 and 2. And then also they're getting Parasite Eve. That would be awesome if that was on ours.
Yeah, of Arc the Lad, you kind of need 1 and 2 because they're connecting games.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to put the first one and not put the second one in.
Let's see here. It looks like they're not getting Rayman, though. So that's something that we're getting, and they're not getting Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey. So they're missing out on that. I don't know.
They
I
are
think
Western titles. I don't even know if they made it to Japan at the time.
that's true. Very good point. So I don't know if I think I would have traded. I'm trying to think here. Which one would I have traded for Arc the Lad 2? I know obviously they're not going to do this, but I'm trying to look at it. I think I would have traded probably Tom Clancy Rainbow Six. I'm not going to play that game. Cool Borders 2, I like the game, but I'm probably not going to play it. So I'd probably trade those two for Arc the Lad 1 and 2. And then I'm thinking for Parasite Eve, I would trade Super Puzzle Fighter 2. Actually, scratch that. Okay, so I'm keeping Tom Clancy Rainbow Six, keeping Cool Borders 2. I'm gonna take out Intelligent Cube, and I'm gonna take out Super Puzzle Fighter 2, because I can go on my cell phone and play all sorts of like puzzle games if I want to. And I'm gonna put Arc the Lad 1 and 2 on there, and then Parasite Eve, I'm gonna take out Jumping Flash, and I'm gonna put, well, actually, scratch that. I'm gonna take out Mr. Driller and put Parasite Eve. That'd be a good PS1 classic. That'd be a better one, I should say.
I was just kind of hoping they put Vagrant Story in something.
Yeah, salt in the wounds. Yeah, I don't know why they couldn't have just put Final Fantasy VII, and at least they don't have to put another Final Fantasy game, even though like all the Final Fantasy games on the PS1 were pretty much classics. I don't know why they could at least done, like you said, Vagrant Story, something without Final Fantasy in its name. I think that still would have been acceptable, you know?
Yeah, I just think that man's work needs to come to light again. I mean, people need to see how great, like, the Ivalice world is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, especially with the fact that they've just did the remaster for Final Fantasy 12, and they're now re-releasing it on the Switch. They just had the PC release, and that's in the Ivalice world. So it would have been cool if they could have kind of used some of that hype for that game and had, hey, let's go back to where it started, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. What do you all think about the PS1 Classic? Are you all planning on buying it? I think at this point, now that I've seen all the games, I'm leaning towards I'm not going to buy it. To be honest. Who knows? I think it's supposed to come out on December 1st, so I still have a month to decide. But, Eric, are you planning on buying it at this point?
No, I haven't bought the NES Classic. I haven't bought the SNES Classic, and I don't plan on buying this. I mean, I already have a lot of these games, at least the more popular ones. And so if I really wanted to, I could just, pop out my good old PlayStation here, put a disc in, start playing. There you go. Don't need that. Now, I understand there would be some benefits with the HDMI output, and maybe the games will look more clear, more crisp. With that, but
that's the biggest thing to me.
A lot of these games are available on PS3 and Vita also, and the ones I really want from there, I could spend less than $20.
Yeah,
and not have to buy that. I understand the novelty of this, especially with people who don't own the PS3 and the Vita, but for me personally, I don't need one.
Yeah. Well, honestly, some of the games, it's not the same across the board. But it's pretty hit or miss, the games that you buy on the PS3 store, because sometimes it just, I don't know, it just does not look right, even on the HD TV. They just applied an automatic upscaler, it just doesn't look right. Final Fantasy VIII comes to mind. The PS3 version just looks like whack on my on my PS3 and my HD TV. It just looks very, very strange. But I mean, a lot of those games are really well done on there. So, I mean, that is a good point. You could probably spend way less than $100 and get, 4 or 5 games off here that you actually really want to play. And you would have analog stick.
Yeah, that's if you already own a PS3 and Vita.
Sure.
For those devices, still to get a PS3 is $150, and getting Vita is still is over 150 or so also. So, you're spending a lot of money with those options also, if you just really want to get these games. But I think if you get those instead, unless the PlayStation Classic offers some unique feature, you can just get those and have a much more large library and get exactly what you want.
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, I think at a time we need to skedaddle here. So very, very interesting though. Regardless, let us know what your thoughts are, and we'll bring it up again next week. We can continue the discussion then. But let's move on to our next topic. We have Diablo Immortal. So this is like a new Diablo game, kind of, that was announced at a recent Blizzard event. And a lot of people are hoping, I think, for the next Diablo game, like Diablo 4, or at least like some kind of like expansion pack or something, or like something like the PC version of Diablo. And it ended up being a mobile version of Diablo. It's actually pretty watered down, I think. Like from what I was hearing online, it doesn't even have a real magic system in there. When you buy equipment, it doesn't show on your character. It looks like it's not the best. It doesn't look like it's the Diablo experience.
People are calling it Diablo Light.
Yeah, and that's made a lot of people mad because they're hoping for another Diablo experience. But they recently had a Q&A that was about 10, 12 minutes long. For fans of the Diablo series, they can ask some people involved with the project, some personal questions they had, and the Q&A was
mistake.
That was a train. It was a train wreck. You can go on YouTube and watch the whole thing. We were thinking about playing like parts of it and stuff on here, but I think it's best if y'all just go and watch it. But there's two highlighted questions that were absolutely like just Jesus. This thing took a wrong turn. I think one of them was a guy saying like, "Hey,
this is some kind of off-season April Fool's joke."
Yeah, that's what one guy asked, and they're just like, "No, this is a real mobile game." And then another guy was like, "We've been waiting for like another like some kind of like update to Diablo 3 for a really long time. Is there any plan on like this coming to the PC or anything in the future, or is this just strictly a mobile game?" And their response was, "Well, this is just strictly a mobile game." And all of a sudden, you just heard like echoes of just like booing, and like they didn't know what to do. And then one guy on stage just like yelled out at the audience, like, "Don't you all have phones?" And like it was just
Run.
not good. That was not a good thing to do or say. So this whole thing just seems like a mess. Apparently, the mobile version of the game too is basically. Well, first off, apparently it's not even being made by Blizzard. Apparently it was kind of like
it's being co-developed by a known mobile developer. I forgot their name, but basically what people are criticizing about that is the previous game made by that company looks extremely similar to what Diablo Immortal looks like, and because of that, people are already assuming it's going to be a reskin of that game. And if you look at reviews, like the Steam reviews of that game, like I think there's a PC version of it, it got mediocre to negative reviews.
Yeah.
So people are already speculating. And of course, it had its free-to-play, pay-to-win nature, from what I heard also.
Sure.
So people are already heavily skeptical about this game.
Yeah, and here, I'll play some gameplay footage while we're talking here. But make sure the sound's off. The thing is, I think one of the biggest things that some people are worried about too is that since this is a mobile game and Activision like technically owns this and everything, like people feel like this is going to be riddled with microtransactions, and it's just like going to be not what they wanted from a Diablo experience, right? And I don't think that's that unrealistic of a concern, to be honest. This seems like the perfect game for all sorts of microtransactions, don't you think?
Yeah, unfortunately, the nature. I mean, I love Diablo. I love playing the first game. I played mostly through the main stuff of the first game, but Diablo 2 I really got into, and I enjoyed playing a druid in that game. And Diablo 3, like I told you guys, I played it a few weeks ago, and I was enjoying things about it. It still doesn't feel quite like it did with Diablo 2, but I was having fun with it regardless. But a lot of people were displeased with Diablo 3 and how it was. So a lot of people are hoping that at BlizzCon of all places, that the final announcement would be a new Diablo game, like Diablo 4 or a remaster of Diablo 2, which people have been heavily requesting. And Blizzard is capable of doing it because they've already done it for StarCraft and Warcraft 3 so far. And so people are hoping, oh, well, Diablo 2 remaster should easily come out also. But instead, the only thing that got announced was a mobile game, which I'm not going to bash on the mobile game itself until it comes out, of course. But I think this was just awful timing. Just such incredibly awful timing. This is a tie in game, like something you tie into a bigger announcement. How it should have been done is not, first off, not be announced at BlizzCon if you don't have anything to announce with it. This is something that should just randomly pop up in the news one day that they're making Diablo Immortal. But how it should have worked is they announced Diablo 4 or Diablo 2 remaster, and then when they announced that, they're like, and while you're waiting, we have another game coming up to hold you over until this game comes out, and that is Diablo Immortal. And I can tell you right now, the blow would have been much less severe. I mean, it's the same thing that happened with Nintendo back when we were begging for a new Metroid game. It's like after Other M, we were like on a few year hiatus with Metroid. And Reggie just comes out all proudly saying that, like, the next game in the Metroid Prime series, and we're like, yes, finally, Federation Force. We're like, what?
Yeah.
It's like you should have announced Metroid Prime 4 and then be like, we'll hold you over with Federation Force.
Well, I think also if they weren't going to announce, in this case, Diablo 4, they could have just put this out on YouTube and not had it at their show. Because when you have your own show, like, and you're like telling people that there's going to be an announcement, going to be like a Diablo announcement, like people are going, you know that what they're going to expect, right? They're going to expect Diablo 4 or some other big announcement like that. I think that if they would have just not done that and just like dropped this trailer on YouTube like a month from now or something like that, I think people would have been upset about it, but I don't think it would have been this bad, right?
Right, because like I said, the timing was bad because at BlizzCon, your main audience there are hardcore Blizzard fans, and hardcore Blizzard fans are mostly PC players. So and people are already naturally skeptical about mobile games. So when you make a big announcement, your final announcement on top of that, a Diablo, like a half-ass looking Diablo game on a mobile platform, it's like, wow, it's like I would be disappointed too if I was there. I would have been like, this is what I just paid money to see.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's really half the thing here is just that people were disappointed with what they were offering. And, they built up anticipation for one thing, and then it ended up not being that. And, I feel like it was really dumb of them to expect this to go any other way. Maybe they didn't expect people to be booing at them during their Q&A. I don't know. I guess
How
that's
did they not expect it. I don't think people at Blizzard are dumb. I don't know how they went into this thinking that there would not be backlash towards it.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, I don't think that, like, I think there's certain people out there that are just against mobile gaming in general. And sometimes I'm a little harsh on mobile gaming, but the concept in of itself of having a game on your cell phone isn't that ridiculous, right? They even brought that up at the Q&A. They said, hey, you're walking around with like a really high piece of technology in your pocket. Some of these cell phones are compared to like 5 years ago were like a decent computer, right? So, and it's like in your pocket, you paid, whatever, $200 for the phone. It's in your contract, but it really should cost you like $1,000. Like you could have like a nice looking video game on your phone. The problem is the very nature of it. You're only playing it for 5 or 10 minutes at a time. It's just it's just made for people to just put their credit card number in.
Well,
You know?
they missed the point of why people don't like mobile games when they said that. They don't. People do not have a problem with how powerful a mobile phone is, because
Yeah.
I agree. It will. Mobile phones will be powerful enough one day that we can just slap it into a. I mean, not anytime soon, but we'll have the power to put it into like a dock, like a Switch, and
hmm
play something that's like highest quality type of gaming you can at the time. But the main point that people do not like about mobiles is that the fact that it's the development of these and the quality of these games are always compromised by stuff like microtransactions, that the companies are willing to decrease the quality of the experience to find ways to get you to pay for something. And on top of that, and I've experienced this with a lot of games, especially like with Dragalia Lost lately. They treat games like they're theme parks instead of experiences. Like I can't just like simply play something. Like I have to play something, then feel like I'm getting advertised to hell,
Yeah.
and then play something again. Now, granted, there are good mobile games out there and good mobile ports. They're far in between, but there are good ones out there. Unfortunately, they are littered to death with these really poorly made free to play games. So, my main issue is that if these developers want us to respect mobile gaming, they need to respect it themselves first. They need to bring it to a quality standard that people would be willing to defend mobile on a higher level. But right now, that's not the case. I'll even admit there are some mobile games I've liked. There are some free to play ones I've liked to an extent. But the underlining tone or like thing with this in general is that no, that people do not respect the platform. And it's these developers' responsibility to find out what can make people respect it.
Yeah, I mean that's really the biggest thing. If people are not respecting the game or the platform, it's you shouldn't miss the point. It's not because of the technology isn't there yet. It's easily there yet. I mean, it's easily there now. It's just the type of games that are coming on there, and especially when you have Activision going to be involved with it. It's who has a reputation for this type of stuff. It's probably not going to be uh, what everyone wants. So, especially when it's been a PC based game for so long, at least the primary fan base. So that's a little strange. You know what they should have done if they wanted to get people excited for a PC version of Diablo. They should have like re-released like an older version of like an old Diablo game on the phone, and then been like one of its announcements. You know?
I don't know. That thing, I think that may have pissed off the fan base for another reason. Like everyone's clamoring for a Diablo 2 remaster, and then they'll be
on the
like,
phone.
yeah, they'll be like, we have brought Diablo 2 back for mobile, and people, I mean, they'll get their pitchforks and torches going. They're like, well, got some killing to do.
I don't know if they made a trailer and they're like Diablo 2 remastered for mobile, right? But it was also going to come out on the PC as well. I think that would have been a good way for like people to be like, okay, whatever, I'm buying the PC version, and I guarantee you, like a third of them would have been like, I'll try the mobile version, and as long as it wasn't like littered to death with microtransactions, like at least they're like, like I wouldn't play this like as my main version, but it's not bad when I'm at work or something. That might kind of turn the tide a little bit for their fan base. You got to ease people into this stuff. You can't just like jump in with, all right, mobile, and it's like, well, no, like I don't even like playing console games. Why would I play? Why would I play the mobile version? So you got to ease people into this.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see like Diablo 1 going through that, be like a Diablo 1 remaster, and like we got it out for PC and you can play on mobile too if you want, that type of deal. But man, it's, I mean, that was I mean, that man must have been very brave to go up there and go and ask Q&As after that. And
Yeah. And the thing that gets me, I think the biggest thing, and we can probably cap it off here and you can give your final thoughts with it, but the thing is, and I think you were kind of alluding to this earlier, it's just baffling that like they don't think that this would have a negative reaction. You know what I mean? Like it seems like you're just like really far out of touch when you can like confidently go on a stage and just throw something out there that is anyone else would know is just outlandishly unpopular. I think at one point, the announcement for this game, it had 124,000 dislikes and it had like 4,000 likes. That's the biggest of all time right now for video games. Like that's bigger than the Nintendo voice chat. Like I don't know what it's at now. I could try to look, but like
it's not Ghostbusters 2016 bad, but it's pretty bad in its own context.
Oh my god, dude. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna show this on my screen. This is even way worse than I just said. Okay, it's currently at Diablo Immortal cinematic trailer. It's at 407,000 dislikes and 13,000 likes. Like Jesus Christ. Like why is this game even coming out anymore? You know?
Yeah, like you said before, it's just so baffling because I don't think people at Blizzard are stupid. They have to know to an extent that there's resentment towards mobile gaming. So was this really like an announcement for their fans, or was it an announcement for their shareholders? Because I remember at the EA E3, and someone pointed this out, and I'm like, wow, that's a really good point. Is that they barely showed off anything for their game lineup at the EA E3, but the Command and Conquer mobile game that they announced last,
yeah,
they did 8 minutes of gameplay at the E3. That game in particular got the most attention.
That was awful. I felt like
it doesn't look good. It certainly does not look good. It looks like with Diablo, it looked like Command and Conquer light.
Yeah. So I don't. There's whole like big corporations. They have like marketing teams and like just general like people that like their whole job is just to like see what your target audience thinks and then let other people know that make decisions, right? And I'm just curious where the disconnect is, because I can't possibly think that somebody's job that's 40 hours a week, like that they could be this far off. The only other thing I could think is that they're just trying to go for an absolutely new demographic. And if they're trying to go for an absolutely new demographic, then why are you using the Diablo brand name? Because
it
you're going but you're going for new players, right? Players that have not played Diablo 1 through 3, right? So if that brand doesn't appeal to them on the console, I mean, I guess maybe you'll pick up people on the phone like, oh, I guess I'll try Diablo out now. It's on my phone. But I feel like you could have just used something else and like could have avoided some of this too. So I don't know.
It's a have your cake and eat it also scenario. It's bringing a known IP to a mobile platform, and
Sure.
not only will it bring new people in, it may entice veterans to come in also. So, and it's assets you don't necessarily have to come up with. The world is there, the lore is there. You just got to create the characters. But actually, if I can give this game the biggest sin I possibly can, still no druids. No,
yeah,
no druids are in Diablo 3, and no druids are in this game, even though they're like the most highly requested class they put in those games.
Yeah,
they
I saw
didn't
that
make it.
That was one of the Q&As too. And that's what somebody asked. And they're like, why are you going to be putting druids in here? Or like, I don't see druids. And like one of the people on stage was like, yeah, druid's one of my favorite classes in World of Warcraft. And I'm like sitting there thinking like, yeah, but we're talking about Diablo.
Like, shh, sit down. Shut up, okay, please.
This isn't helping. This isn't helping at all. Anyways, so if y'all want a good entertainment though, Diablo Immortal Q&A, go check it out. I think it's like 10 minutes long, but it's pretty entertaining.
I do think there's going to be more about this coming up. People are still already in a rage fit about it right now, so I'm sure we'll hear more about this soon, either from developers or people who are finding leaks or something. And if it's significant, I'm sure we'll talk about it more.
Yeah, I couldn't possibly imagine how they could possibly rescue this. Short of just coming out and being like, there's no microtransactions and we're rebuilding the game from the ground up. I don't know. And it's coming out on PC.
Yeah, there you go. They canceled it. Diablo 4 is coming. Sorry about that.
Yeah. That guy was right. Belated April Fools.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, let us know what your thoughts are in the comments, and we'll be glad to talk about it some more next week. But next topic. On November 8th, Final Fantasy 15, they're going to be, Square Enix is going to be celebrating Final Fantasy 15's second anniversary, which is, I don't even feel like November 8th was when the game came out. I thought it came out November 30th, which is strange. But anyways, maybe that's the Japanese date. I can't remember. I don't know. I don't want to say anything else about that. But they're going to be having a live stream. They're celebrating the anniversary of the game, and they're going to be making some announcements. And I'm kind of curious what those announcements are, to be honest, because the only thing I can think they would be is either it's going to be some standard Square Enix jackassery, like, hey, here's some bottled wine, or it's going to be some more details regarding the upcoming character DLCs, right? Because we got 4 of them that are supposed to come out next year. And if it's going to be those more details about those DLCs, I'm kind of surprised by that, because I figured they would have wanted to hold that information until next year and kind of surprise everyone at E3 with, you know, some more information regarding those. Because the other DLCs, they kind of held back a lot until, you know, a month before they were going to come out, especially episode Ignis. We really didn't get a full length trailer. We only got like a minor teaser trailer. So I'm kind of surprised they're doing a live stream at all to celebrate the second anniversary of the game. It's because it's kind of strange, to be honest. They don't have live streams to celebrate the anniversaries of the other games. I mean, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird, but what are your thoughts?
I think it's going to be mostly just advertising the new DLC that's coming up, or any new collaborations, like the one with Terra Battle is going to be a thing also. I think they're probably jumping into that more.
Correction.
I don't think it'll be much more special than that. I think they may do some funny tie-in things, like, you know how like Final Fantasy 13 and Louis Vuitton joined together to make like a new purse or something. I think they'll probably do something similar with that with FF15 again. They'll probably find like 2 or 3 more random companies to do some form of FF15 collaboration with. That's the case a lot of times nowadays with the using the Final Fantasy brand. But I think they'll probably jump into the first episode at least. I don't think the future ones though. I think they may. What's the first one supposed to be? Arden? Episode Arden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first one's supposed to be Arden, and then I think after there it's going to Aaron. Well, Aaron A is supposed to be a part of that. Then we got Luna, episode Noctis. Let me see what the full list is. But anyways, quick correction. I said November 8th. It's going to be November 7th, so Wednesday evening, depending where you live. It's 11 p.m.
Yeah. They may talk more about some new stuff in the online mode also, or some features that they've added in to make the game fun, maybe.
Yeah, but it's just, if I feel like they already announced stuff year round with YouTube and everything else, and that makes headlines and people talk about it. So it seems strange to me that you're going to have a special program broadcast that tells me that you're going to announce something unusual, because they just had the Terra Battle deal with Noctis, right? Where Noctis goes on a little adventure with a character from Terra Battle, I think. I haven't gotten the Final Fantasy 15.
I think her name was Sarah. I didn't get to play Terra Battle too much because it got canceled, but
yeah. but
I remember her name being Sarah.
Anyways, so it's supposed to be pretty cool, but they had that came out. So the fact that like they didn't hold that till this announcement or something else, I'm kind of like interested to actually see why they feel like they need to have a live stream type deal where they're gonna like make these announcements. I can't imagine what it's gonna be, unless it's just gonna be a bunch of tie-ins, some more tie-ins like the Tekken 7 tie-in and stuff like that. I don't know, but I feel like they wouldn't need to have a special program broadcast as they're calling it, for the second anniversary. That seems a little over the top. Now, granted,
maybe they're just taking the Nintendo approach. Nintendo just puts directs out now throughout the year. Maybe
with nothing to announce.
I mean, I hope companies take up on that. I'm kind of glad they do it like this, because that means we can get information year round instead of having to wait for specific events for the year.
Well, and I guess that's the thing, is they've been announcing stuff all year. I mean, so it's kind of, I'm not quite sure what they would announce now, if it's not going to be something big. But again, Square Enix, they did have the 30th anniversary of Final Fantasy show, which everyone was all amped up about. And the only thing that they actually showed us was cup noodle and $1,000 bottles of wine. And we got the release date for Final Fantasy 12 Remaster, which was a game that already came out. And I think like a concept art for Final Fantasy 7, a game that was already out. So my hopes, I guess, can't be too high, because Square Enix is known to just hype people up for absolutely no reason. But I'm interested to see what's going to be there. So you don't think they'll have any information regarding the DLCs coming out next year?
No, I'm very sure they're going to say something about it. I mean, at the very least, I do think they'll at least show what they got going with episode art and so far. Rather if it's a cinematic trailer or actually show some gameplay to it, they've got to mention it somehow. I mean, on the second year anniversary stream, they've got to.
Yeah, because I mean, the second year is kind of a strange year to celebrate. But dude, if they show some episode art and footage or some cinematic trailer for that, I think like I could get really down on that. I would be really, really excited to see that. So, you're just like, whatever. That's about the only thing from 15 I would still be excited about.
I mean, for you FF15 fans out there, I'm obviously not one. I mean, the stuff you enjoy, there's more of it. There you go.
But if it is anything huge, I'm sure we'll talk about it again next week. But cool. There you go. Let's move on. Keep on going. We got. Let's see here. Next item on the agenda here. So these are going to be some real quick topics, but we got Switch news. Basically, on November 6th, we're going to have a World of Final Fantasy coming out, and I'm planning on buying that.
Me too.
Eventually, so I'm excited for that. And then Phantasy Star, there was a lot of news going around that it's going to be coming out this month for the Switch. People are getting really, really excited. And then it came out that it was not coming out in the West this month. It was only coming out in Japan this month, and that there's not a Western release date. But then they backtracked that statement, and then it was clarified that no, it in fact is not coming out in the West this month. So
sad.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad about that. But first off, you said you're planning on buying World of Final Fantasy.
Yes.
On the Switch. What made you want to do that? Is it the new content that they're bringing, or is there some other reason?
It's got new content, and I have tried it before, and I was interested in where it was going, but I wasn't really getting down with the battle system. But I really want to try it again. I kind of want to give it a fair chance, because there's a lot about it I did like. I mean, the soundtrack is absolutely amazing. Even if you've never played the game, download that. If you like Final Fantasy tracks, it has some great remixes in there and some original themes also. But I want to try it again. I want to see if I can wrap my head around it and maybe give it a fair chance that it deserves. Because the quality of the game is very nice. It's not broken. It's colorful. And, it does look like a lot of loving care was put into the game. And it doesn't feel like a cash grab crossover type game.
Yeah, so I don't know. I never picked up the game originally just because it came out around the same time as Final Fantasy 15. And then I just got caught up with other things. But I've been speculating about buying it on the PC because I've seen some sales. But I think this would be the best version for me to play just because it's mobile. I can play it a little bit in bed. I can take it with me to work, play it on my lunch break if I want to in my car. There's a lot of flexibility with that. I'm seeing here that some of the new stuff, not too exciting. It's a new fishing game with Noctis. You can change the avatars of the characters, and there's some new mirages. I don't know what that means in the context of the game, but I guess that's kind of cool. A little
Yeah.
addition, but
Yeah.
if you already beat the game, I'm not sure that would be enough to bring it back.
Yeah, I think there with the fact that I think this might be a better handheld game than a console game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Now, for Phantasy Star, I am disappointed it didn't come. I wanted to see how the Sega Classic Ages or like handles these type of games, because if you look at the sites where they were advertising this,
Yeah.
it had features like a mini map, and my God, does if Phantasy Star 1 needed anything desperately, I know it's a product of its time, but a mini map would help wonders, because when you go into dungeons, the layout looks the same. Like, it's a brick layout. You go in and you have to memorize and like just write down where what was and how the dungeon was laid out. And the mini map just completely alleviates that. And that is what I saw as a feature in that version. Now, if you don't care about that and you just play it classic instead, Sega is releasing a Sega Classics collection in it's coming out in December, early December. And Phantasy Star is part of that collection. So if you really just want to if you don't just play it like the classic mode, no bells or whistles to it, there will be that version coming out.
See, but I think I'm with you. I think I would want the slightly updated version.
Yeah, I mean, granted, you can go on GameFAQs and pull up a map if you
but it's
if
not
you
the
want to do
same.
that. Yeah, I know a mini map is just much more simpler, but if you want to just get a lot more games, including Phantasy Star 1, then the Sega Ages collection's coming out early December.
Very, very cool.
And I think I need to check it again, but I believe Phantasy Star 4 is on that thing also. And Phantasy Star 4 is an amazing RPG.
Let me look real quick. Ages December. Want to get a well, it's taking me longer than I thought. We'll look at it later. But yeah, for sure. So you can pick it up in December on the Sega Ages collection, or you can wait for hopefully a Western release, and you can get some added features like Eric was talking about, that mini map. And I'm a big fan of that stuff, so for sure. I think that's the version I'd want to play. Moving on, though, we have a question from one of our viewers, Cody Murley. He says, what is the worst console RPG you've ever played, hands down, regardless of critic, user, reviews? I'm going to go to his comments real quick, because he actually tells us that what his version is. But this was an interesting question. He was kind of playing off some of the earlier questions that we had, meaning what was some of the best RPGs that we liked on the console, regardless of critic ratings, etc. But he says, in a similar vein to a question asked in this video about loved games hated by critics, what is the worst console RPG you've ever played, hands down, regardless of critic review or user reviews? Do you have a specific memory of the experience? It can span any console generation, but exclude any games which were unplayable, glitched, and also include Hildiad and Quest 64. Okay, there you go, Eric. No Quest 64. Always curious what gamers whom have played a large number of RPGs spanning multiple consoles choose. For me, it's a toss-up between Legend of Alon DR, I can't pronounce that, I'm sorry, and Ephemeral Fantasia, PS2 era, aka no excuse for publishers to release such bad games. The latter is only game I ever bought and returned the same day. Thanks for providing consistent quality entertainment and news. Thank you, Cody. So, Eric, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'll go a little controversial here.
Okay.
And I'll say Final Fantasy Type 0.
Oh, that was a contender for me, too.
Man, I tell you, there's so many things wrong I find with that game. It tries to be a dark story while try being two-facing about it. It's like, hey, look, there's blood, there's people dying. Oh boy, it's like we're such a mature game now, and it's like, no, you don't really hit the mark on what makes a game more mature. You go to Final Fantasy Tactics if you want a more mature Final Fantasy story. It's
Sure.
like it's like you were trying to be like a bloody action movie, but still with corny JRPG characters.
Yeah, it was just over the top for me. A lot of just whining and crying, and it just didn't mesh well with the environment or the story that they were telling. It
Yeah,
was awesome. It was. I'm sorry. Were you gonna say something?
yeah. I was just gonna say on top of that, like they instantly throw all 16 characters at you and expect you to get them to know all of them right at the beginning of the game,
Yeah.
and just fall in love with each of these characters. They're all the most blank slate, uninteresting characters ever, with like the grand exception of like the two people that recently joined the thing because
Hmm.
they actually had some kind of story to them. And man, and like even the gameplay felt off. Like it didn't feel like a compelling action game. It just felt like just a very spammy type of thing. I didn't feel like I thought much about it. And they had these awful little mini games on the world map. It's like, man, I made it to like past halfway through the game where I was like, I can't take this anymore, and I had to turn it off. I mean, it was such an awful game to me.
Yeah. Honestly, like I found it bewildering too that they that they tried to put a PSP game on a PS4 too. That just seems strange to me.
Even PSP standards, it's not a great game.
Yeah, for sure. So some other games that I was thinking about bringing up because I didn't want to just pick Final Fantasy Type Zero. So probably recently, within the last year, if I had to pick one, it would definitely be Lost Sphere. I just I don't know if it's the worst game I ever played, but I fell asleep playing it several times. That's not the sign of a great RPG. I felt really burnt that I spent $50 on that game, and I don't think I ever feel like I want to beat it. I put like 30 hours into it, and I just don't want to complete it. I didn't find any redeeming qualities about the game at all. So
It was
I just
certainly generic and repetitive.
yeah. But to go on from there, I had two other games that I wanted to bring up because I couldn't pick just one. The problem I have with this question, and it's not really a problem, but for me, if it's a game that I really didn't like, I generally didn't play it longer than I had to make that decision, and then I stopped playing it. So it's hard for me to like think like, okay, like I bought this game, I played a lot of it, and I didn't like it. Usually that's not the case. But another game that I didn't like, and I think this is actually a game a lot of people do like, but I really did not like Breath of Fire 2. Uh, I played like 35 hours of it just because like I knew a lot of people really liked it, and I just never could get into that game.
And
I
that was
don't
a classic.
I don't think there's anything about it that I did like, to be honest. Uh, it's just to me it wasn't a good game for my taste personally. Why you liked it?
Oh yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, 3 and 4 are definitely are better games by
Mm-hmm.
far, but I thought 2 was really good. I mean, I think the
I
one thing I didn't really like about 2 was like near the end that you could upgrade the characters to a new form, but if they like die, then like you have to go all the way back to the shamans and put them back in that state, then go back to the underground again. That was really annoying, but uh, I enjoyed it like I enjoyed like a lot of other Super Nintendo RPGs at the time. It's still one of the better ones.
See, to me, I guess the way I looked at it was, I felt like the characters were very thin, and like there wasn't like I just didn't really get into any of their stories. I felt like a lot of the dialogue was just like there to be like dialogue, and I just didn't feel like it was well written to me. It felt like it was just like I felt just like God, when is this stopping? Like it just I wasn't interested in it at all.
I will
So
say if you're a religious person, it does have some
I'm not.
it does have some anti-religious messaging, and
Yeah.
it's like being too dependent on the church, or like the church is like always there and good for you, and it turns out it's actually being hosted by a demon, that type of deal. But
Oh,
um I mean, but I thought the quality was good enough. 3 and 4 just surpassed it by miles, but
yeah.
and I thought it was good for what it was.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's that game, and the only other game I thought about bringing up was And this was a game that I think some of you probably do like. I'm willing to give it some more chances, but I've given it like 3 chances now, and I did not like it. Persona 2. I did not like that game. I've played probably about 5 hours of that game at this point. I don't like it. So it's, I don't know. I didn't like the art direction of it. I didn't like the dialogue. I didn't like the battles. I didn't like the dungeon crawler element of it. I just couldn't wait to stop playing it. So that's a game out there that I really didn't like at all. So
I can understand that. Now, if I want to give like a special shout out to something, now my memory of it has gone foggy over the years, so that's why I decided not to talk too much about it. But I remember getting legitimately angry at playing Infinite on Discovery for the 360. That is such a mind-boggling, awful RPG on so many levels. Like, the gameplay was awful. The main character was just straight out. He was just straight out unlikable. And the supporting characters were over the top annoying. The voice acting was awful. The pacing of the story was just so bad. And the reasons why characters like join you, like there's 2 children who join you on your journey, like Palom and Porm, FF4 level like children, and they're like you don't want them anywhere near you in the game, and the mother is like, please send my children out to battle. They're the only thing I have left, and I would be like in total emotional trauma if they died, but please take them out to you in this dangerous world and let them have millions of opportunities to go out there and die. And the children are just over the top annoying, and like just the gameplay was just like so repetitive, so boring, so broken feeling. I'm like, who made this game? And I was like, oh, Tri-Ace.
Yeah. So
never play it, people. Even if you see it for $5 or someone's trying to give it to you, take it and throw it away. It's a bad game.
Just use it as a coaster or something.
No, not even a coaster. It's even not worthy of your cup.
That's not a good coaster. That's not a good game. So yeah, there's some games out there. If y'all have some ideas about some other games that you just felt were like probably one of the worst console RPGs you've ever played, hands down, give us some thoughts, and maybe it'll kind of jar our memory some more with some other bad games. We're always willing to talk about games we don't like.
If there's anything good, you think I'm good? I'm good at ranting at stuff. So
yeah. Well, as much as we talk about Final Fantasy 15, you thought we would have picked that one, but I don't think that's one of the worst games I've ever played. Absolutely not. So
yeah.
So anyways, let's read some of these comments real quick, and then I'll kind of wrap this episode up. So we got BioPhoenix for the screen here. We have BioPhoenix. He says, I'm not huge into Rockstar games, mostly because they don't have the same amount of variety of games like before. You get games like Max Payne, Manhunt, and The Warriors, and a few others, which I liked, but I will say that the first Red Dead was a good game, and 2 looks promising, so I will get it eventually. As for Dreamcast games on Switch, I'm perfectly okay with either way they put them on. Skies of Arcadia would be a good choice, but if they put it on there, they should put the GameCube version, since it fixes the encounter rate.
Oh yeah, GameCube version, definitely.
Yeah, but I'd love to see games like Dynamite Cop, Bang.io, and Gigawing, and one of my favorite lesser-known games, Make an X. But sadly, it seems unlikely, but you never know. I haven't played a lot of those games. Phantasy Star 3 had some cool ideas that I do like. But yeah, it's not the best by any means. Also, some of the battle music is annoying. Yes, BioPhoenix, you are absolutely correct. Some of the music, battle music, and many of the Phantasy Star games are annoying from that era.
I don't think I'll ever really highly praise the soundtrack on that, especially since both the Sega Master System and the Genesis had inferior soundtracks to the Super Nintendo and the NES.
I think there's only a few. There's not that many Sega Genesis games in general, or Sega games that come to mind that like I actually think like, oh, they had a great soundtrack. I mean, the Sonic series had a great soundtrack.
Oh yeah,
but I think
definitely.
I think that just came down to the style of music they played. But we have Dude McGuy. Go ahead.
I'll name one more really good soundtrack. I mean, I know there's plenty of good soundtracks on the Sega Genesis. I'm just saying some people utilize it better than others, and the Phantasy Star series wasn't really it. But Rocket Knight Adventures, amazing soundtrack to it. Like, just go on YouTube and listen to them, or just play the game because the game's really fun.
Cool. Very, very cool. Then we have Dude McGuy. He says it would probably never happen, but personally, I think Final Fantasy 16 should be developed by the Bravely Default / Octopath Traveler team, and maybe bring on Sakaguchi and Mistwalker to help out. It should be developed like a similar aesthetic retro feel as Octopath Traveler. This way, they could hopefully release another main entry in the Final Fantasy franchise before the end of this generation and release it on all consoles, including the Switch. Meanwhile, they can keep devoting most of the high-tech company resources to the Final Fantasy remake. It should be a win-win. He goes on further, but I think that'd be a cool idea. Obviously, like he said, it would probably never happen, but...
Dude, McGuy, I love the way you think. That's my dream team, of course, like in the context of what Square Enix can realistically provide. But it's not that realistic. I don't think it'll happen. I mean...
That's too much of a good idea in one room for Square Enix.
I'll have a big old dumb goofy smile on my face if it did happen, but I mean, I just don't know what's going on in that decision process in Square Enix, but it's not one that's been working in their favor lately.
Yeah, for sure. He goes on to say, I think continued on this point, but this would probably appeal to a lot of hardcore fans of the franchise. Since we haven't really had a classic turn-based FF since Final Fantasy X, there are probably a lot of newer fans that don't care for the classic FF style. Maybe they got into the series with 13 or 15, but for those people, the action style FF7 remake and new FF15 content is still on the way. That's a good point. 16, meanwhile, should try to be a lower budget, lower risk project that can be used as a throwback to the classic style of FF, and really focus on telling a good story with the classic ATB style combat, similar to what they did with FF9 back in the day, which started development as a side project, not a mainline FF game. That's a very good point, too. Cool episode, guys. Keep it up. Hat, I played The Bouncer back on the PS2 also. LOL. Of course you did. A very good game back then. But he says it's not a very good game, but it can be fun to go through it like watching a cheesy action movie. It's still enjoyable with that mindset. Also, if you really want to play it, I'd be happy to send you my copy of Star Ocean 5. I've been looking to give it away to someone, but I must warn you, it is just as bad, if not worse, than what Eric described.
Was I that brutal on it last time?
Well, I think you've been pretty brutal a couple of times. Thank you for offering to send it to me. I think I saw it the other day at that store. I think I'm just going to pick it up there.
I think it's like really cheap. I think it's like $10-15.
Yeah. I might take you up on your offer. We'll see, but I'll probably just pick it up at the store around the corner. And that way, if I don't like it, there's no hard feelings. But yeah, I appreciate the offer.
I think at this point, it's cheaper to go out and buy it than send it out. That's a nice gesture, though. But
yeah. Okay, we already talked about Cody Murley. He asked his question about the worst console RPG. Leanne.
You can add Star Ocean 5 in there.
Star Ocean 5, another contender. Okay, so we have Leanne. She says, I 100% agree with Eric. I favor FF16 over FF7 Remake. Sadly, I don't see them anytime soon. Definitely not in the next 5 years. Maybe we'd get an announcement in 2023 and a release in the late 20s. I don't even like the fact that people are saying the 20s. That's crazy. I'll have to get used to that. But anyways, that was a kind of tangent. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, 5 years. I think we'll see that Final Fantasy VII remake probably before that. I would guess maybe like 2 to 3 years, maybe 2 years. I'm hoping. Maybe I'm optimistic.
I said in the previous episode, but I still think that there will be more information coming out after the whole Kingdom Hearts 3 hype.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, like we said, there's a big difference between learning more information and actually holding the game in your hands. That can be a dramatic difference. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to see, but see whose predictions are correct.
Yeah, just watch the previous episode if you want really detailed
information,
opinions on it from me.
Yeah. But anyways, it sounds like she agrees with you 100% though. She'd rather have 16 than 7 remake.
Yep. I still stand by that. I mean, if they cancel the FF7 remake, I'll be like, oh, well.
As long as 16's coming out, yeah. Kingdom Geekdom, and this will be our last comment, says, I have love for Star Ocean 4. When the question came up about loved games that were hated by critics, it was the first one to come to my mind. It is flawed compared to some other games, but it was still fun. Keep up the good work, guys. Glad we have another Star Ocean 4 fan out there besides myself.
Yeah, I don't think hardcore Star Ocean fans have liked Star Ocean since the second game. So, I mean, I say just take the games for what they are and not compare them to the previous games to help you out with that. I know I say that as someone who rips on the Final Fantasy franchise here and there, but just try to take it individually.
And I saw Star Ocean 2 at the store the other day, and I think it was like $35, but it looked like it was in really good shape. I was very tempted to buy it, and I didn't. I should have. Shame on me.
It's a pretty good game. I think it is, but I think you really benefit from playing the first Star Ocean because it is
I like that one,
direct
though.
sequel.
Yeah.
Have you played the first one?
Yes, I played it with the Japanese translated, like fan copy. So
right, yeah. So then you're good to go. I think second game is a good time.
Very cool. Well, maybe if it's still there next time I go in there, I'll pick it up. But that'll wrap it up this week, and we'll be back next week with another episode, and we'll catch you all then. Thanks, guys.
All right, take care.